Manchester. Oh, Manchester. Manchester by the sea with the Lucas and Zack podcast. That was
that's right,
my
folks.
favorite song ever as a kid. I listened to that all the time when I was a child. The Manchester by the Sea theme song.
See, I'm pretty sure that your favorite song as a child was "We're Running with the Wolves Tonight," even though it was not made until years after your childhood was over.
For the intro, should I have actually just done the choral singing that's in Manchester by the Sea scores? Go, oh, oh,
it's great though. I mean, it's
have you
great.
listened to the soundtrack as listening? It's great background. It's great reading music.
But after watching it, I really kind of want to because I kind of loved the atmosphere it creates. This very solitary Massachusetts coast town atmosphere. It's really great. If you hadn't figured out what
rated.
Oh, I think it's great. I think it's legitimately amazing. And we can talk about it when we get there, but I think there's an argument it could have been Oscar nominated, and I wouldn't have had a problem with that. Yes, folks, we're continuing Lucas movies we love, Lucas and Zack movies. We talked about It's a Wonderful Life. We're talking about a little bit of a sadder film, but also a film that I think we both think is quite funny in moments, because the truth of life is that within tragedy and loss also comes humanity, and humanity features humor. And a movie that is any one of those is not 100% an accurate representation of the human spirit. So we're here to talk Manchester by the Sea, Kenneth Lonergan's wonderful 2016 film. But before we do that, let's jump into the last Letterboxd movie and spill our guts about what we've been watching. What have you been watching, Zach Ford?
So I watched a documentary called Young at Heart. We've talked about this off camera a little bit because you have somewhat of a personal connection to a movie you've never seen.
Yep.
But this is something I saw in theaters in 2007. Those rare documentaries you get to see in theaters, and it really struck me. And I recently, on a different show on the other Sucks Top 100, had this as my number 100, which was way too low because I rewatched it for the first time.
It's an enemy show of ours.
Yes, an enemy show of us. I only went to try and tear it down from the inside. And I gave it the benefit of the doubt to put it at my top one or my number 100, and that was too low because that movie, it's delightful shit. It is a documentary of an elderly choir, I think 70 plus, a lot of 80-year-olds in this singing rock and roll songs from different generations from the 60s to the most modern is Coldplay's Fix You. And then they do Sonic Youth. They get weird with it. They do some more mainstream ones. They do I Feel Good. So a broad range of songs, but you're still watching it performed by 80-year-olds. And they do this great montage of what do you like to listen to? And it's all opera, classical. And then here's some of their takes on these songs. It's real funny, but they do it because of, they find a purpose in it and entertain others. And they tour the world, really. They go to Europe with this group. And so watching the passion that they have for this project is inspiring, the energy that it comes out from, but there's also it deals with life in a way that a movie about an elderly community would. There is tragic passings, there is people deal with health issues, and everyone else is kind of witnessing this as friends being sad, but also within themselves, knowing that a time comes for everybody, and it's heartbreaking. And it ends with a climactic song that pulls those themes together, and sung by this guy who, was not part of the band anymore because his health kind of decreased too much. He was brought back for the special event singing Fix You. He has a older Johnny Cash kind of voice, that tonality that just worked perfectly in a song. And it's a song that I think you easily could think is super cheesy, but the texture of his voice mixed with the the moment and the context that's being sung in is real heartbreaking. I finished the movie right before this, unfortunately in the restroom, and I'm in the restroom just bawling my eyes out, very embarrassingly in the restroom. I had to tell my wife immediately. I just cried, and she's like, "Where were you?" I was in the restroom. but it's like not even like light tears. It's like full on bawling, which it doesn't happen to be that much. But this movie, I think it's probably the third or fourth time I've seen it, and it has hit me like all the time. Unfortunately, it's really hard to find. Not really hard to find. Like you just can't buy a DVD of it really, but you can rent it for $4 on Amazon. So go for it.
Yeah, so the connection that Zach pointed out, which is that the Young and Horror Chorus, the subject of this film, is rehearses in Northampton, Massachusetts, which is relatively close to the area I've lived. It's a place I've been many times. I'm pretty sure I may have seen them perform at least once. I don't have a specific recollection of this, but they are like a known quantity in the area where I live. Yeah.
I am very jealous. That means you're like the closest to becoming part of the band. I just feel like, do I move to Massachusetts when I'm 70 just for the chance to partake in this band that would be 50 years into its run by then?
I mean, you're welcome in Massachusetts. That's all I would say. The people of Massachusetts will welcome Zach Ford at any time he chooses to move here.
Sounds good. Hey, okay. My very, very like 1% chance for a little bit there.
The last Letterboxd movie I watched was Moana. I rewatched Moana for another podcast. Yeah, no, it's a surprisingly somewhat popular film. The 2016 Disney animated film, which is focused on like Pacific Islander Polynesian culture, and also is kind of it's not the first, but it's one of the bigger ones where they really jumped into computer animation and were like, we're going to really take this to the extreme. We're going to have giant rock monsters and big waves and ships. Like they're really taking fully advantage of the fact that they don't have to hand draw this stuff anymore. And it's some really good songs. It continues a trend that I think both Zach and I believe, which is that Lin-Manuel Miranda should write stuff for other people to sing, because it's better when he's not singing his stuff. Because like he's a talented he's clearly a talented screenwriter, a talented composer. He writes good songs. I'm gonna be honest, he's a Broadway level performer who has a legitimately bad singing voice. Like he's vocally is weak. It's interesting because
not a Broadway level performer at all. He's someone whose creative side has got him opportunities that I don't think his natural talent on stage would have gotten him.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying is like he is someone who has achieved a level on Broadway that he is put up in a class of people that vocally he is not close to being on the level of the people you would put in the class with him. But Moana's really good. It's got really fun songs. Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah, and he wrote the songs. They're great songs.
Great songs.
And even the Dwayne Johnson has a really good song.
He got
Dwayne Johnson outperforms him musically.
No, Dwayne Johnson is great in this movie. I mean, I would never have, if you had told me, I mean, like, this is obviously not the first time I watched this, but if you had told me that you were putting Dwayne Johnson in an animated movie, my first thought would have been, oh, this is the generic, we're going to put a celebrity with a known voice in a movie, and it'll be kind of lame because it's just their voice in a character and it's not very interesting. First off, plays a character. Secondly, the character's awesome, has an amazingly cool design, has all these awesome tattoos that move. I love them. The Maui design is so cool. It's one of the coolest things I think I've seen in an anime movie in a really time. It's just really fun. Like the fact that he has tattoos that are literal stories, that's just a really cool thing. And then Dwayne Johnson is great in it. I'm completely blanking on her name, and I probably would butcher saying it, but the young woman who plays Moana is like amazing and like really good in the film. Everyone around her is really good. You can look it up. I guess I could do that.
Ali Karaha. That's my best get on it. You could look up the pronunciation, sir. Yeah,
we could do that.
But if she didn't, they Disney blew it putting her on the Little Mermaid live, because she really could have been a great Ariel. Maybe that's too close to Moana, and she can't play two princesses, but it's a live action princess. But I think she would have been perfect. She fucking crushed Part of Your World on the live TV version of Little Mermaid. That she
I'm sure.
Should put in a movie.
Yeah, I mean, besides she did the Little Mermaid live, has she done anything since then that you would recognize? I guess.
I thought she had something recently or soon in the works.
Something called All Together Now? Fred Armisen.
Oh, yeah, that's probably what I know because Brett Haley, he does like a lot of great movies that 50-year-olds love. The Hero, which is like such a Lucas movie, because it's like Sam Elliott as this aging actor. It just seems like a Lucas thing. And
I
Hearts
never
Beat
saw that.
Loud was kind of a small little,
I saw that.
fan
So
favorite.
that's
Yeah.
good.
So it's a real director. I think it was a Netflix movie if it's came out yet. It couldn't have came out yet. But
It's coming out
a
in
lead
August.
role.
In
Okay.
August. Yeah, it looks like she's playing the lead or close to it.
I think she has a future ahead of her, hopefully.
You are right though. It is kind of sucks that they sort of wasted her on like a live version of one of these musicals. Because you're right, she probably would be really good.
Yeah,
Playing that character.
But there's other opportunity. There's other non-Disney musicals I'm sure she can be a perfect fit for as well. I mean, I wonder if she has any interest in the actual Broadway stage or that, she can go for as well. It'd be interesting to see where she goes.
Yeah, she's clearly really talented. And honestly, it's kind of interesting that we haven't seen
Because she's really young.
She is really
She was
young.
like, she was, less than 16 when she taped Moana.
Yeah, she's
probably the movie came out.
So she was like 15 then. Yeah, she was pretty young. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, even in the context of that, like it is a little bit surprising she has not popped this more than she has because she got a lot of praise for that.
You never know for the youth performers how much they're trying to devote their time to it too, and also devote their time to growing up, which is probably the smarter way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the good news is that if you're a fan of hers, she certainly has not damaged her stock in any way so far. In some ways, actually, being the person, like basically, if you look at her credits, she has 4 film credits. 3 of them are playing Moana in the movie, a short, and then Ralph Breaks the Internet. So
I think
she's clearly going to be this character.
How Far Ago has kind of broken in as like a classic Disney song at this point, one of the best I Want songs. So she'll forever have some sort of legacy for singing that song. That will help carry her for a little bit.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if they do a second Moana, or I think there was an announcement of a TV show. I don't remember if she was specifically involved in that or not. But yeah, I mean, it's a really fun Disney animated movie. It's nice to see. There's definitely, Disney is like basically any large company that produces a lot of stuff. They're going to go through peaks and valleys. I think Moana, I just remember when it came out in 2016 was like a movie that really, I think, piqued a lot of people's interest because it was just so different from everything they'd done before, but also just like looked really good and was coming from, people that had a trusted pedigree and then people believed were likely to produce something of high quality.
So there's not a lot of information about this. I don't know how far in pre-production this actually is, but it shows that she has casted in the movie adaptation of Spring Awakening, which was a huge Broadway hit.
Yeah, so that was.
She's the only person listed on the cast at this point, and there is no director, just the writers and her. So whether this will come to fruition, who knows?
I'm always skeptical anytime you see something like that. Because if you go and look at it, it says the production is beginning spring of 2022. This thing hasn't been updated since 2019. It's probably not a good sign that this is actually a thing.
But if it did happen, it would be a great opportunity for breaking out for her. That seems like a good project.
Do you think that she should stay in the realm of musicals? Do you think that obviously this is a skill that she has. Like she's clearly vocally talented.
Yeah.
But do you want to just be the musicals person, or do you think that there's value into breaking out?
I think no one needs to be pigeonholed, but you also got to take your opportunities where there are, and I feel like that's where the opportunities will be for a little bit until she, reaches the next level. Then will probably have.
I guess part of it having an adult musical role is probably valuable too.
I think doing another musical will be very beneficial. First.
Because especially considering it will be live action if she does it, and it won't be her playing a kid. Will probably be a big input. Like it's a Spring Awakening. I'm not super familiar with it. It's a lot more adult source material than Moana is. Like this is not classic, more family friendly. This is not really family friendly. This is more in the line of the Rents and like the kind of the newer age musicals that are a little bit harder edged.
But the emotive singing, as far as I can notice, it seems like by far her strength. So you want to have something that you can rely on your strength before you can challenge yourself a little bit.
Yeah, she's clearly got a voice that is can do a lot of different things with it. It is not one dimensional. It's very impressive. Let's continue on to our main discussion. We're talking about Manchester by the Sea, a beautiful place. Zach, would you give us your wonderful, timely, concise, and speedily delivered plot summary?
I'm going to add everything I learned on the Amazon Prime X-Ray as I go through this plot summary. So, Casey Affleck, he's a hot janitor. We know he's a hot janitor because someone says, my janitor is hot and I have a crush on him. Very important key detail, and we will talk about that later. It makes it believable that Casey Affleck could be a janitor by someone at least admitting that he's a hot version of one. He is called back to Manchester he was living in Boston. He's called back to Manchester by the Sea. It's legal name, Manchester by the Sea. It's officially called that, is what I found out. No, it's on the Amazon X-Ray. I Googled it too. Look this up, but through some weird mayoral campaign, they got the name legitimately changed to Manchester by the Sea with the dashes. Am I wrong? Or are you just surprised that I had full of facts? He's making faces. His face got 2 inches closer to the screen. I have no idea what the outcome of this is.
So it is true. You can know it simply as Manchester, which was the name prior to 1989.
Yeah.
But yes, it is technically, you can call it Manchester by the Sea. I believe it goes by both names.
Who did their research today?
I'm just impressed. I legitimately thought this was, I'm not going to lie, I thought this was a bit. I thought Zach Ford was doing a bit. And I was about to be like, okay, Zach, this is great. You're doing a bit. You're also spreading disinformation.
It's not true information.
No, it's legitimately true. This is crazy.
The writing that I read too was like editorialized, very opinionated. It was like through like a really crazy and controversial mayoral campaign, they got the name changed. Like it was this big problematic issue that they wanted to change it to Manchester by the Sea. Anyways, back to summary. So he got called to Manchester by the sea, and because his brother passed away. And he has to go pick up his nephew, who we've seen had a good relationship as a childhood. In flashbacks, they talk about sharks a lot. Sharks. So he has to go pick him up, tell him his father died. He finds out he is the guardian of him. And then the rest of the movie is partially about him trying to figure out how he's going to take care of his nephew, by Lucas Hedges. Kitcher's name is Patrick, while still trying to stay as far away from Manchester as possible, because we come to know his kind of tragic past, why he left his family, why he left his time, because he got drunk and burned his house down and killed all his kids, as we all do. And the movie, so partially about him trying to figure out.
A little unfair. I think what really happened is he was partying and he was a little negligent, and
yes, bad shit happened. Bad shit happened. So it's partially about him trying to figure out how to take care of his nephew, and partially about him dealing with his own trauma and the grief, in not letting that interfere in his relationship with Patrick. So laughs are had, tears are shed. So you say you shed tears, right? Or no, shed tears. Don't shred tears. Put them through the tear shredder. Cut them in half. Stop unmiking yourself, because I'm going to keep going because I don't know how to stop.
I'm just enjoying the fact that, like, if I mute myself, Zach just keeps talking. It just gets more ridiculous over time.
I mean, now
I love
realize
this movie.
I don't know how to end a sentence yet. I just don't.
Yes, I actually do know this, because I've recorded like 40 plus episodes of a podcast with you, and every time I basically, the only way to stop Zach is to put a muzzle on him.
I just start signaling SOS while I'm mid-sentence because I can't end my sentence.
I can always tell. I've learned how to cut in on you when you start going because you'll just start talking and you'll finish your sentence and you'll just keep going and you just start elaborating and it's actually kind of quite clever because you have this ability to say absolutely nothing but use a lot of words to say it in.
So everything I say.
No thought. There's no thought there. You finished your thoughts. There's no thoughts left, but there are words. There will be words for hours.
I will say, on occasion, I can stretch it out so I get to the punchline I wanted all along, and then I'll stop. But sometimes it may take 5 minutes to get to that punchline.
You either do one of two things. You just keep talking, or you just stop talking and stare at me. So 2 Zacks. Let's talk about Manchester by the Sea. I love this movie. I think this is... We did I Love You Man, which I think you like more than I do, but we both still love. Mm-hmm. It's a Wonderful Life, which we both love, but I think I like a little bit more than you. It's probably a little bit higher rated for me.
I don't think
it's a slight.
Yeah.
No, it's a slight difference, but they're probably both top 100 all time, but I'm just higher. And then Manchester, which I think I like a little bit more as well. This is my number 2 film of 2016. My number 3 film of the 2010s.
Your life.
No, my life is much happier, and I'm lucky that I did not experience this. This movie is amazing. Like, I was rewatching this. Like, I remember seeing it in 2016 and being like, that movie is amazing. You've got, like, acting is amazing. Kenneth Lonergan's screenplay is, like, legitimately brilliant. And the way that he ties together the flashbacks to his past and the normal stuff is, like, it dodges all the annoying tropes sometimes you see with flashbacks. It's not goofy. They don't do any stupid stuff. It's really well played. The emotion is really well played, especially because I feel like a lot of times when you get into movies and you have super emotional stuff, they stop acting like people. Like, quite a lot of people, when you have really bad, terrible trauma, emotional stuff happen to you, don't necessarily get really loud and cryy. Sometimes it really shuts you down. And I think Casey Affleck just plays that, like, locked down trauma and suffering so well. Like, you can see that something is hurting him. Even from the first scene where he's like cleaning a toilet and like helping with ceiling stuff. He just has this internalized grief. And it's just, he's just brilliant. So good. He totally deserves the Oscar.
He lives his life constantly in a way to just like avoid his grief in a way, or to avoid it having to fully deal with it, because he knows once he has to confront this, and this is, exhibited in the classic scene with Michelle Williams at the end. But when he comes face to face with this trauma, with his role within it, you can see there's no way for him to like return back, or it's really hard. So he's just constantly trying to keep it at a distance. That's the whole setup of the movie, is why he's away from Manchester, why he's from his family, is he's just trying to keep this memory in the distance, because we do see him trying to kill himself soon after the accident, and you just know that is always kind of glooming on the other side of things, if he ever has that to kind of catch up to him.
That scene is so good, the one in the police station right after you find back.
That's my favorite scene. It is almost cut.
It's amazing.
But I know from the Amazon X-ray, Kenneth Lonergan wanted to cut that scene, but Casey Affleck talked him out of it.
Well, I mean, thank you, Casey Affleck, because that scene is so good. Just watching him, there's just this sense of like he feels like he deserves to be punished. So when he's talking to these officers and they're like, "No, we're going to let you go," he's like, "There's no penalty." Like, he feels such an intense sense of guilt for his inability to put a screen over the fireplace that caused the death of his children, that he thinks he should be punished, and they're letting him go. And he walks, you get this really slow walk, and he doesn't look violent, he doesn't look suicidal, he just looks catatonic, he looks out of it, and he walks out, and then he grabs the gun and tries to end it, because in his mind, he deserves to be punished for what he did. And he's like trying to, I think it's a combination of, he doesn't want to live in a world where he has to acknowledge what he did, and also he wants to punish himself for the awfulness that he's caused. Affleck is so good at playing the two timelines too. And one thing that's most impressive with this is that he doesn't look that different in the two timelines physically. He's very similar. But but it's
his face, the way he carries
acting,
his face,
the way he carries his face, the way he speaks, the way he acts, everything that an actor can control. He completely changed all this stuff. He doesn't look older. His face looks the same. He's not really got different hair or beard or anything, but it's the way that he chooses to like present himself that is just significantly different. Because the old Lee talked to people and chatted to people and like had this outward engagement with the world. And Lee, the president, Lee, the handyman, is just, he has nothing. He will respond if you specifically speak to him in a moment.
Yeah.
But he doesn't engage with people. He doesn't want to engage with people. And he will actively not engage in situations where not engaging makes you look like a complete weirdo. Like literally sitting in a room with somebody and refusing to engage because he just doesn't have any interest in that.
In the manner where when he does choose to engage with people is also a, act of self-punishment, which is, picking fights with strangers in bars just to, I don't know, probably feel pain in the way or to let out aggression. That's the only,
think, yeah. There's something about that, like wanting to get hurt when he picks those
that's
fights.
The only, yeah. Because they're not brought up, especially the one later on isn't brought up by anything. It's completely a picked on fight. But there's something to be said that's the only time for the first half hour of the movie where he like chooses to interact with someone is to like say, "Hey, do you want to fight me?" More or less.
Yeah.
That's how we met. You came up to me and, "Hey, what the fuck are you looking at?" And then you punched me in the face.
Actually, exactly what happened was that I was trying to fix your shower. And then you got really weird about it, and I was like,
then I called and said, "So, it's janitor."
Let's talk about all the really small characters in this film that are just so good, and go right back to the beginning. His supervisor is famed thespian Stephen Henderson, who we would see in films like Lady Bird and Fences and stuff.
So good at Lady Bird.
He might be my favorite. He might be my favorite performance in the entire film. He's so good. But like this is the thing that this movie does is that Lonergan has such a control over who he wants in this movie, his screenplay, everything. Zack freezing me. Did I lose Zack? No, he's back. All right. No, it's just such an amazing work by Lonergan. I mean, obviously we can talk about the acting as individual performances, but I think Lonergan is just. He's so on his game here. Like, we've talked about
Lonergan's a master of tone, and he gets the actors that will fit that tone perfectly. Because we were saying off camera how people think this movie's such a hard watch and just a gut punch that doesn't have anything to offer. But that's the opposite of how Lonergan works his films. He's the perfect at doing the emotional, heart wrenching gut punch into a real situation with real people who have, humor and who have actual real interactions with each other and don't get completely consumed by their grief. That's the point of Casey Affleck's character, but the world around him is not consumed by this, melodramatic tone. So there's still a lot of levity in the movie that we say makes it, highly watchable, even though there's such tragedy within it. And I think Lonergan's just great at casting the people that can work that tone. I think Casey Affleck is perfect for that tone. He has his weird, mumbly charm to him that I think he's able to express, but also can carry such pain. And that's just Lonergan on the script. It's someone with a charm, but carries such pain in his pen.
There are so many funny moments. I really don't. I really don't. I got to shave it. This movie has. You're talking about the humor. I think it's actually really intelligent of Lonergan as a screenwriter to realize that in moments of tragedy, in moments of sadness and bad news, there is a weird. A lot of times people do reach for humor, even in the darkest moments. I mean. He does this several times throughout the film, and it feels really accurate. One of the first sequences is when we meet Patrick's father, played by Kyle Chandler, and he's in the hospital because he has his heart is weak and his heart mechanism is weak. And they're talking to the doctor about what this condition means and what they can do. And his wife is kind of hysterical. Patrick's mom and Kyle Chandler's wife is kind of hysterical. And there's this moment where the doctor says a somewhat silly phrase to say to anyone in a hospital, but obviously not, not trying to be malicious, but says something like, "It's not a good disease." To which Kyle Chandler goes, "What is a good disease?" And they have this like almost this vaudeville bit where Casey Affleck, Lee Taylor goes and goes, "Athlete's foot," and they just have this kind of jokey moment, and the wife can't handle it. She loses it and walks out of the room. But there is this kind of really funny dark moment in the middle of it where Casey Affleck and Kyle Chandler and the doctor are kind of having this almost joke about what would be a good disease. But it also feels really accurate to the way people respond to stuff. Like, I feel like in movies, a lot of times they make the mistake of thinking whenever you get bad news, everyone's response is always to be super solemn and sad. People also have like a real dark sense of humor in the worst moments. And this film really captures that impressively well.
I don't think only have the dark humor, but that's a real way that people process things. It's kind of the way we see Patrick. He's someone who doesn't lose his charm through his grief. He's still able to respond, as a human for the most part, kind of keep his, real persona throughout it. He's, of course, dealing with stuff. You see him have an anxiety attack, but he's still able to interact with his friends. He still can make jokes and quips and try to break through his uncle, because that's how real people act. You don't get completely consumed to where you lack any kind of personality or charisma anymore, which I think was where other movies that can be a little too cruel and a little more hard to watch, I think, is where they lack, is that they create kind of a false atmosphere, a false tonality of miserableism that this movie does not go into. It cannot be described in any way a miserablest movie.
Yeah, Lonergan is very clearly trying not to make sadness porn. This movie is not about being sad. People have tragedies. It's about trauma. It's about how going again to the site of past trauma brings up previous trauma, how you have to deal with it, how people have different approaches to trauma. In some ways, Lee and Patrick are really big sides of coins for how people approach trauma. I mean, we see Lee originally, we see trauma happen, and we see the result, which is that Lee completely, retreats within himself. He doesn't engage with anyone. He basically moves from Manchester to Boston, takes a one room, becomes a janitor, and basically does not have a life remotely similar to his previous one. Zack, you just turn a loud fan on?
I didn't turn anything on.
Okay.
I have no idea what's happening. I'm trying to mess with my internet. It seems like there's a delay. I'm trying to make myself better, but I have no idea what you're hearing.
All right.
I'm currently looking up the outline. I got worried. Okay, I feel like I had a great joke that I forgot, but I don't think I have a great joke.
And then, continuing my point, Patrick is kind of the opposite of the turn. Patrick has this, he loses his father, and he's very focused on, in some ways, his escape from his grief and his trauma is being with people. Clearly, if you watch Patrick throughout this film, he doesn't feel the weight of his father's passing when he is playing in his band or hanging out with these girls or talking with his friends or at school. It's the moment when he's alone that he feels the most trauma, which is sort of the opposite of Lee, who seems to have the least ability to cope with the world when he's around people and wants to become solitary. Well, Patrick is the complete opposite. So it is this really interesting dichotomy between these two men and the way that they approach grief.
Yeah, Patrick is constantly seeking distraction, while Casey Affleck is seeking isolation.
That's a very different movie. It's a very different movie if Lee Chandler is doing this film.
But I think that's maybe where some of the growth happens with Casey Affleck's character, is that he learns by the way Patrick is dealing with it, that you do need other people around you. I would say the movie doesn't have a nice clean resolution, but there's still some slight growth. He still has plans to connect with Patrick, but he can't fully commit. And that's really what I think is the most successful part of the movie, is it doesn't take that easy way out by the end. Because you think that there's a clean conclusion if they wanted to. He can decide to move to Manchester to kind of start a new family in his own way with him and Patrick and ingrain himself back in the community, but in reality his grief is still too much for that. You see him get into a fight just like 10 minutes before this decision, him still acting out, in his pain. That's not a real response or even a real option for his character. So the route it takes of having him, make a plan for Patrick to change guardianship, to get him adopted by, the great friend of Kyle Chandler's character, great guy. Mm-hmm. That he's a top contender for a great hang, but still have some connections to be able to move back. He does move closer to a different town of Boston. I did Google Maps this, by the way. So Quincy, according to Google Maps, is like a 50-minute drive. But they said with traffic in the movie, they talk about how the traffic is worse. But where he moves, I think, Charlestown, it says like 30 minutes from Manchester --C-. So he's making some sort of more commitment, but not able to completely deal with everything again, or he's still going to be a janitor, far away from having to see Michelle Williams anymore, or to see all the people. Because you also see how the town looks at him, and it has to be like impossible for him to deal with. He tries to get a job, and he just can't get a job in Manchester because he has this, shadow hanging on his back, and then you see the one woman saying you cannot let him in there because people are still, judging him for his, crime in a sense.
Yeah, it is interesting how we don't really understand the true impact of who Lee Chandler is until we go back to Manchester, because in the beginning of the film, he's just this nondescript janitor. He's basically no different than any other person who could be fixing the pipes or cleaning the toilets. Like there's nothing given an indication that he has something that's different than others. And then you go back to Manchester and you really get to see that not only does he have this, you're right, like a crime, he has this sin in his past that people are unwilling to forget, but that's made him infamous and like, a pariah in the community. And like, it's not unsurprising that would have happened, because it's clear that a lot of people witnessed the original event, but it makes it so that really he can't be in Manchester outside of a couple days because of both his trauma and the response that others have towards it.
But I mean, there's nothing people love more than making complete conclusions about people with no room for forgiveness that they will forever hold to, of people they don't know. So the woman saying, I don't want to see him because she's not willing to make any room for the ideas and judgment that she said is like, honestly, in our times, too true. People still get to their judgments really harsh.
Yeah. That also just feels like, I'm going to be honest, a very Massachusetts trait to be like, I don't like Lee Chandler. Lee Chandler did this. I never want to see him around. Yeah. That rings very true. As a born and raised Massachusetts guy, that feels
not the Midwest fakery where you act like nothing happened and you don't do the elephant in the room. You just kind of keep 1 foot distance while you talk to them while trying to keep a smile on their face.
No, fake politeness is not really a thing in Massachusetts. People kind of tell you what they think of you. This actually brings me to another point, which is that this movie is, as somebody from Massachusetts, really accurate. I don't know. Maybe is Kenneth Lonergan from Massachusetts? Does he live in Massachusetts?
I would assume so, because he seems really interesting. Being that he based the moment where Casey Affleck is yelling at Patrick, and there's a stranger that says, good parenting. Kenneth Lonergan based that on a real thing that happened with him yelling at his daughter. That makes me think that he lives in Massachusetts if he would encounter a stranger like that.
Interesting. He looks like he went to Wesleyan University in Connecticut. I don't know if he's exactly, but he's definitely New England area.
He is the guy that shouts good parenting, right? That is Kenneth Lonergan in the movie. That's Kenneth Lonergan. Okay,
yeah. This movie is like this. There's like a couple moments in this film which are just really accurate to Massachusetts. One of them is the first scene at the hospital. He shows up. The nurse tells him that his brother's dead, and he has this outburst of "fuck this," which is like really loud and really aggressive compared to the rest of the scene. And then there's like a really, really awkward moment of silence, and then he apologizes. And the guy, what's his name? George, I think. Yeah, the Chandler family friend, like slaps him on the shoulder in a way that is just really weirdly accurate. All the part, like, just there's so many people in this you just kind of recognize from living here. It's just like the way that people deal with grief at times is really interesting. The kind of repressed nature of it, but also like the anger, but then kind of like pulling back almost instantly is just really, it feels really accurate. They also shot it basically all in Massachusetts, which is why from just like a visual, it looks like Massachusetts.
Looks great for like a low-key indie drama in a way. It looks real
gorgeous.
Good because it's very atmospheric. It's very environmental or natural in a way. Like you can like feel the wind, brush through your hair, and you can smell the sea. It's very textural in a way. It makes you feel like you're in Boston or Massachusetts, not Boston, but Manchester --the-C.
Yeah. So the cinematographer is Jody Lee Lips, who has also done the cinematography for another film we've talked about in this podcast, which is A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, which I don't think is
also
actually that
low key. I think looks good. It has a graininess to it that is,
which I don't think is that surprising. It's very much like shooting environments as they are, like taking advantage of this is the city, so I'm gonna shoot it like the city. This is the water, so I'm gonna shoot it like the water. Just kind of like taking advantage of the environments you're placed in.
But there's such a textural warmth that fits the mood of both those movies. Because it's still, we're talking about how hard this movie is still warm. There's still kind of a blanketness quality to it. Like, I feel like I could watch this at the worst of moods and still somehow, like, make me feel better through an act of catharsis. Not make me feel better through lightly, but a way for you to, get a deep hug while you cry, in a way. I do want to say real quick because I did my research. Kenneth Lonergan, he's a New Yorker.
Yeah, I looked that up. Yeah,
grew up in the school in New York. Yeah, there's a lot of similarities between New York and Boston, as much as you want to not admit to it. I'm
not going to argue that. There's definitely a lot of similarities, especially between the way that the people act, that are very similar between New Englanders and New Yorkers. We have a similar chip on our shoulder, fuck the rest of the world, we're the best place on earth mentality. And like a kind of sense of just, we don't have a lot of patience for people. As we don't have patience for foolishness. We're kind of like, get out of my face. Yeah, there's definitely some similarities. I also think Matt Damon is one of the producers in this film and was in Famous, I believe, was supposed to play the Casey Affleck role for a while until he couldn't do it, and they went with Affleck. Which, like, thank God. I love Matt Damon.
He chose not to do it. I thought he said. I thought he said that someone would be better, or that Casey would be better. I think he bowed out, knowing that there would be better casting. It was like a producer decision that he made.
No, he didn't have a break in his schedule. Okay. So that's why he went ahead.
Okay.
Which is, like, I love Matt Damon. Matt Damon could not do this movie.
He could do this movie. It'd be a little different. It won't be as, grief-stricken, but he can do that. He can do the like pre-tragedy moments really well. The chemistry that you'd have with Kyle Chandler and with Patrick would be great. I think it would be a little more Reba Zoo-ish in its actor tonality.
It would have been
similar.
I don't think it would have been as nuanced. I don't think, much as Damon is a considerably more famous and loved personality than Casey Affleck, Affleck has just like a complexity to him and like a sense of like an extra level of deepness as an actor that I don't think Damon really possesses. Damon doesn't play a lot of deep emotions
more
in his film.
Soulful. That's like Casey Affleck's main trend, is that it's like the emotions somehow are in his sleeve, but like not being admitted. Like you still keep them right at the tip of his sleeve. Is just the weight that he carries around. He seems like he's constantly carried the weight of the world, and it seems very socially intelligent in his performances.
Yeah, it's definitely would be a very different movie. Let's talk about the rest of the cast.
Yeah, Kyle Chandler. Let's do Kyle Chandler. That's who I want to talk about.
Yeah,
Kyle Chandler. Best performance. It's his best performance. And Friday Night Lights can compare. I know that's his most famous, and it's the unfair TV boost because he's gotten to play a character for years. But I think if you judge on a sole basis, I think this is his performance that works best. I think because he gets to shine charismatically in his chemistry with Casey Affleck, but then I think his best scene is after the tragedy, him moving, Casey Affleck into the apartment, still, being the brother that's being there for him, trying to give him a push to, live some life of normalcy, and where he's kind of pushing, like, you need furniture, and like, we're going to go out and get furniture, and he like takes a pause to like Casey Affleck gather himself. He's like, okay, now it's time to get up. Let's go get something. And I think that's just a great caring big brother chemistry. Because just like Casey Affleck, I think Kyle Chandler seemed just like very empathetic and very socially intelligent to know how to work off other people's emotions in the right way. And I think that comes perfectly in this movie.
Yeah, I would agree. He is really good, especially the scene where he's like, you're going to drive there. How long is it going to take you? When are you going to call me? Because he's clearly talking like his understanding of the situation where he's talking to a brother who has just tried to commit suicide and like very clearly like, I'm not letting this happen. You're going to call me. I'm calling the cops if you don't call me, which is something you see with people who like have family members who are potential suicide threats. It's like a lot of like, you need to check in with me. You need to make sure you're telling me you're okay. Otherwise I will call somebody to check for me, just like if you have a potential depressive episodes, if you have this clear suicidal ideation, that you need to make sure you're telling me that that's not occurring so that I can make sure that you're okay.
Yeah, I think post Friday Night Lights, people got the wrong idea of what made him a good performer. Is they thought like, football coach, authority figure, so he can be like cops or military people, any kind of authority, leader, which I do not think is strength. I think the part that works in Friday Night Lights and in this is he has more of the like towny, more of the blue collar quality they can fit in, with the everyday people. It's just where I think he, exhibits his skills the best. Like Bloodlines, he's really great in Bloodlines and has a little bit of like griminess to the community that he's ingrained in.
Yeah, I mean, he's an interesting performer in that, like, he's not consistent with his performances. Like, no. And I think that is part of what you were saying, ties on what you're probably saying. He sometimes gets cast in roles that don't fit what he does, and then you really see, like,
he's like fine, but he's serviceable. He can't shine.
Yeah, he can be somewhat bad too. I think it's script. I think it's sometimes they throw him into these, like, generic, larger, like, action movie types things where he kind of starts to struggle and just doesn't even like
Wolf of Wall Street. He's just playing an FBI agent and he doesn't elevate what was there on the script for him.
Yeah,
he doesn't really make much out of the character.
You watch that
he
role
just serves
the
plot.
You're like, why isn't this John Hamm or somebody who has a little bit more umph to that type of performance? Yeah. Continuing. So George, the Chandler's family friend, is played by C.J. Wilson, who's got a relatively small career. He's also in Demolition, The Intern, and Trial of the Chicago 7. So he's just a really kind of good, gruff, blue-collar New Englander. Like, he's always there for Lee. He's like, I'll call these people. I'll take care of this. I'll take care of that. He doesn't... New Englanders can be kind of tough and mean and kind of assholes. Yeah. But if they choose to come there to be there for somebody, they will be there 100%. And you really see that, like, George doesn't have a reason. George doesn't really need to be there doing all this stuff. He doesn't have to agree to call the mom and call the ex-wife and call this person and talk to the funeral. Like, he takes on this huge amount of stuff really quickly and totally never complains. He offers to, like, take care of Patrick and become his, like, there's so many things that this guy steps up into that he does not need to step into, that he, like, that no one would blame him if he didn't, but he's just like the rock of that group, and he just steps up for Lee and helps him out, like, in the moment when Lee really doesn't know what he's doing. And, like, you gradually get to see Lee get better at how dealing with everything, but initially Lee is just like, I don't know how to deal with any of this stuff anymore. I've been in Boston in one room by myself for years.
Yeah, and he seems like a little overwhelmed by it. Like, he's kind of just making it up as he goes too, but he has that great loyalty of this kind of surrogate bigger brother that he was, as Kyle Chandler's, probably closest friend, is what we assume. He was his work partner, at least, on the boat. That I think just it creates a very warm performance. The guy's like a teddy bear. And, like, if anyone we're going to talk about greatest hang later, but I'm going to add a new category, which is greatest hug. He would get the best hug.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's just the complete rock. He's like the old dog you just want around. He's just like the nicest, loyal person. You just need people like that in your life. This movie has a lot of people who had fame in previous decades kind of pulled out of obscurity a little bit and then plopped into roles. So Tate Donovan plays Patrick's hockey coach in like 2 scenes or something.
He has one of the more awkward moments of the movie too.
Oh
right,
yeah,
right when he's yelling and like pretty much almost kicks him off the team to immediately find out his dad just died. So he's like, take back what I said. You can come skate with us.
Yeah, you can see that was just like he meant what he said in the moment, and then the moment changed rapidly, and he had to try to figure out how to deal with a very, very different reality that they were now in.
Yeah,
but it's just he's just kind of a fun performance to have in the film. Yeah, he's good. And I kind of like just one of those like classic actors that I think works well in this. Like he doesn't try to be anything more than he needs to be. He's just the hockey coach, and I think he kind of just Lauderdale seems really good at getting people to buy into playing kind of very normal people. Like this movie is filled with just a lot of really normal people. It's like the guy on the fishing boat and the hockey coach and somebody's girlfriend and somebody's girlfriend's mom. Like there's just a lot of really normal people. Like there's nothing
the
like
community seems real. It's the gloss is taken off a little bit. Even I said Casey Affleck, you'd like no one's gonna believe him as like the janitor thing. That guy's like too good looking, but they comment on that and he's still a little scruffy and all that. He would just be like the one randomly good looking guy in town. You get the random good looking janitor, but everybody else is just the right level of real looking and real acting and accents and scruffiness and baggy clothes that don't fit you.
Squall jackets and the right kind of hats, and like there's a lot of scenes where like people are just randomly wearing like kind of a ratty piece of Boston sports gear, and that's just very New England. Yeah, they're just really good at getting people to invest. Even Affleck is really good at. They make the comment about him being the hot janitor, but he also just every move he makes with the way he holds his body makes him look worse than he actually is. Yeah. Like he looks kind of scrawny and like kind of hunched over because the way he holds himself. He never really like pulls his shoulders up and back. He never really makes himself look as impressive. Like he's a good looking guy. He never really makes himself look as good looking as he actually is. Like he always is kind of underplaying it by the way that he stands. But it also feels like accurate because it relates to the trauma. It doesn't feel like, hey, Brad Pitt, can you put on this crappy jacket and like pretend to be less attractive? It just works in terms of it works narratively.
Yeah, for sure.
So Sylvie, who's one of Patrick's girlfriends, I believe this is not the one who has the mother, is played by Cara Hayward, who is
it's a reunion. It's a reunion between Lucas
from
Hedges
Moonrise Kingdom.
Which stars Lucas Hedges, most important role in that movie, as the like Boy Scout gang leader. He's not the most important role, but he's like the Boy Scout gang leader, kind of going on the hunt for Cara Hayward and I forget the actor's name, but it is a weird reunion for him. But she kind of gets the short end of the stick in this movie. She's the one there for him right after death and just gets ignored for the girl in the band the rest of the movie.
Yes. Patrick playing the field a little bit, being a little naughty.
Kind of a dick. He's kind of a dick.
There is one scene, like I think it's actually this interesting moment where it's like he does sort of like he's got that teenage boy dickishness where he is arrogant enough to think he is big enough shit that he deserves 2 girls, and like even the way he talks about it, like to the adult, like he literally straight up tells Lee Chandler, "Yeah, I have 2 of them. They don't know about each other. Please don't tell them about me."
Oh yeah, he's way too confident in sexuality. I would have hated him as a teenager.
There's some great lines though, like he says one girl because of her mother eats only basement stuff, and Lee goes, "What does that mean?" He goes, "It means I'm working on it." There's some good lines.
That one works because of the accent. That's a real like Boston accent working on it.
It really is. Bringing us to the other girlfriend, Sandy. She's not played by somebody we recognize, but her mom, Jill, is played by Heather Burns, who famously works in the bookshop in You've Got Mail.
Yeah. And solid performance. She gets her own awkward moments. I do want to talk about the one aspect of the movie that does not work for me. It is a performance. You could probably guess what it is.
Interesting.
You want to guess who I think is the bad performance of the movie?
I think you're about to say it, and I'm about to disagree with you.
So it's Gretchen Mol. Gretchen Mol is bad. Who plays his mom? I think her story is also her story is given a real disservice, I think, as well, because they kind of rush through it that you can't fully understand why she gets so separated, other than, she's seen to have some kind of substance abuse, but for her to go completely off the grid and leave kind of gets left into the blanks a little bit. You have to read a little too much into it.
Well, they have several lines that sort of explains it. There's at least several mentions of substance abuse, being in a psych ward.
Yeah.
I think in some ways, I don't know if she's terrible. It's never a performance that I've stood out and means like she's terrible. To me, it's a role that is there's no glory in playing that role. You're the character that is just kind of a mess constantly. Kind of has nothing going for them. And
but what you are seeing of her too, from her being like a little bit caught up in the grief of hearing that Kyle Chandler's not going to last, and the next thing you see is she's a drug addict and she's gone. It's such like a fast line for it to cross. Well, she seems somewhat normal. It's like almost giving in to them saying what an asshole she is during that scene, which was unfair in the moment, but you're led to believe that might be true, even though you don't.
I love the way that happens, where she gets hysterical and storms out, and then they all trash her for a second. And then Lee goes, she's an asshole, and the other two guys get mad at him. And I'm like, that's so New Englander right there, that you would trash this woman, and then somebody calls her an asshole, so they have to defend her. It's a great. I mean, I think that the goal of the film, and you can argue if this lands or not, is that from the first scene, she's clearly just so out of touch with everybody else there. Yeah. Like she's in a totally different universe than everybody else. Like,
but I don't know if that's on purpose. She's still like a townie. But she acts like she's in a whole different movie.
I think
she's so much more stylized and so much more over the top dramatic about everything that it's like a completely different performance, a completely different director. It just feels like they directed her scenes.
I don't know if that's Lonergan, if that might be she just can't play the like the more toned down version. I do.
It's just not as connected to. It's not as down to earth, not as felt. I feel like it just seems more performative.
I don't think we ever really get to see an honest look at what she's feeling. To me, everything
with performing, I guess.
To me, it feels a lot of like she has problems with the situation, and there's obvious understanding of the trauma, but also the way she chooses to react to it is just incredibly off-putting for everybody else in the scenes. It's like, to me, it's like the frustrating. It's actually kind of a. I think it's important to have in the film to show that when people experience trauma or experience tragedy or like bad news, one of the worst things that people are is the person who tries to take the attention away from the person actually experiencing the bad thing in those situations. And like, she's that classic person in that situation who's like, Kyle Chandler's the one who's just found out that his heart is weak and he potentially might only live into his 60s. And she's making it all about her when it's like, shut up. This is not about you. He's the one with the heart condition. Like,
I don't think let him talk to the about her. That's why I think she seems very rational in that moment. She's like, you're joking and you have like a family and a son. It's making about the bigger picture. It's more like when your mind races and goes to all the possibilities and everything in the future that can be, without him, is where her stress comes from. And I think that's really real. And I don't think it's about her.
I mean,
I think she was being treated unfairly in that scene. And then that leads to the movie just completely dismissing of her.
I also think it's just like, I mean, in some ways it's like, I don't really think I want more of her though, is the weird thing. Like, I feel like she needs to be in the story because we need to understand why Patrick's mom isn't around so that Lee has to come to the story. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't really want more of that character. I don't think that anything is going to be learned more than what we're told about the fact that she was in psych wards and had drug addiction and like letting her dog crap on the floor. Like, all the stuff about her, I think, sets up the picture that this was a person who was deeply unwell and either having her substance abuse accentuate her mental illness or using substance abuse to try to counteract the mental illness. And whatever happened, it did not end up well. I do really think this brings it up to one of my sneaky favorite performances in this film, which is Matthew Broderick as her
Fun.
weird, creepy, super evangelical Christian husband. Which I love this scene because it brings up something that's very New England, which is that Christianity is not a thing that New Englanders are against or Massachusetts people are against.
Everyone's Catholic.
Everybody hates that kind of Christianity is the thing. This state is a state filled with Irish and Italian immigrants. Like Catholicism is huge in Massachusetts. The thing that people don't like, and this leads to what a great exchange in the car, is that like really fake. I have to bring up Christianity every time I make a statement or about anything, and like I can't take a joke because like Catholicism is always, it's clearly a religion that people believe in, but there's also this sense of Catholicism being not only religious but cultural, but also so that allows people to play into the ideas of, you know, we're Catholic and we go to church on Sunday, but also like we watch football and we we get plastered watching the Bruins. Like there's a sense of like intermingling of the religion and their real life in a way that doesn't make them seem as sterile as Matthew Broderick does in his scenes.
It's a commit your sins and pray about it later kind of Catholic.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very much the New England thing. And Matthew Broderick is like he's too religious for the Catholics. You know, like he's reached that level.
Like he's a bind up kind of Christian.
It's like born again evangelical. Like it's the stuff that is somewhat too extreme for people in New England to deal with, but it also makes for a great scene. And he's also very good
hiding
playing
your
that.
sins and act like they don't exist.
Right. It's
He's also,
that's the thing.
Is he a monster? Is he holding her against her will and taking charge of all her, interactions as you see with the letter? But is there more going on? Is he controlling her finances? Is he like the guardianship? Is he keeping her, locked up? I think he's secretly a monster, and we need to put him on trial. We need to put him on the internet. Matthew Broderick in general, the Matthew Broderick character. Let's bring Matthew Broderick down.
I don't think he's a monster. I think he's a really weird dude. But like, let's be real for a second.
Super suspicious. To handle all interactions through me was a real kind of controlling.
Yes, but I think there's also a legitimate argument the film makes that his mom might not be able to handle interactions. But
isn't he kind of taking advantage of her when she is in that situation? It's almost like he's not going to get anyone that beautiful ever again. So he's going to take them when they're crazy and take control of their life. He's really taking advantage of that woman.
It's definitely a creepy situation with. It does feel a little bit culty in that he is super religious and almost cult-like in his Christianity, and she is somebody who has clear issues with addiction and mental health / understanding of reality and what is the things you should focus on. So yeah, it does come off as really weird. And that scene but it also just leads to a great scene following with Affleck and Hedges, where they're clearly just disgusted by that thing as a concept, and leads to a great line, which is when he goes, "He was just so Christian," and Lee Chandler goes, "You do realize Catholics are Christians, right?" Which is just a great line, but also totally accurate to that situation, because if you showed that scene to a bunch of New Englanders, they would crap on him for being this weird Christian, and then somebody would remind them that they all go and take communion every Sunday. They'd be like, "Yeah, but we're Catholics. That's a different thing. There's a different thing here." But it's just very accurate and also just a really funny and really smart scene.
Yeah, I think his performance is good. I mean, that's the role Matthew Broderick is. And as you were kind of saying, Gretchen, what was the outsider? He's a true outsider. He's supposed to kind of be a clash with their life and their community, and it works.
Yeah. Let's see. Josh Hamilton is the lawyer that they speak to. Josh Hamilton, who would have a big role a couple years later in 8th grade.
Okay. That's not his most important role.
It's a bigger role, and the audience will recognize
generational defining performance and the classic kicking and screaming.
Absolutely.
Which he should have led to a bigger career that didn't happen.
More importantly, plays research tech number 2 in The Bourne Identity.
Sure. He's good. what I think is funny too is he like doesn't have the clean kindness of like a lawyer. He seems like a little bit off and a little bit disheveled, which seems very small town Manchester by the Sea lawyery. That works.
Oh, he's very much like I am. He's if you go to his office, he's clearly like it's a small office. He's clearly the only lawyer there. He has one receptionist. She's probably worked at the firm since like his dad was there. His dad has died, but the receptionist is still there or something. Like it really feels like a small town law firm where like he's not doing anything big. He's basically exists so he can, fill out divorce papers and wills.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like seems like his baseline function is wills and divorce papers. And like occasionally if someone wants to sell a boat, he might get involved to write up the paperwork. Like he has this like it's a very low key like lawyer job. Seems like
someone who's like very smart, like to be a lawyer, to be like capable and intelligent, but maybe just not that ambitious and maybe not that organized. That's kind of where his max of his career lies.
Or he just came back to take over like the family firm, and
yeah,
like he could have gotten a job at a bigger firm, but he would decided to go back and help out his dad or something, in the family firm. Finally, we talked about this Kenneth Lonergan cameos as the Manchester Pedestrian. He's so good. It's such a good small scene. Like legitimately, if you were to talk about like best one scene performances by actors,
by a director, really, one scene performance by a director.
He's like legitimately really good in that scene. He also just looks like a New Englander. He's got like the messed up hair. He's got the squall jacket on. No, he has several lines because he says nice parenting to them, like which is also just a classic like New Englander asshole thing where you're going to comment on somebody else's behavior.
I get very worried about this often. I was at the zoo with Theo, and everything's outside due to COVID at this point. And I was trying to put him in the stroller. It was just me and him. And he had a complete meltdown because he just wanted to keep running around. And so I'm just like manhandling him and in a stroller. And I was waiting for someone to come and like question me on my physicality and my parenting.
Question: you live in the Midwest, though, I think like the Midwest is a little bit more.
They avoid. Yeah, they will avoid anything.
In Massachusetts, somebody might have said something.
They'll carry it. They'll call somebody on me. I'll get reported in the background, but nothing will be done face to face.
Yeah, Massachusetts is a little more abrupt. It's just a really funny scene where he says "nice parenting," and then Lee yells at him, and they basically threaten to fight each other in the middle of the street.
I do want to real quickly clarify because when I ended that story that quick, it makes it seem like I was really rough. I was just holding his arm down, Mike, so I can get the armband around him. It was not that strong. It was my own insecurity that I was worried about. But I think it's an everyday parent moment that was happening. But always worried about when your child has tantrums, you get worried about people thinking you're a bad parent.
I feel like every parent who has a car seat or stroller has at one point tried to figure out how to get clasp over a child who is having a flip out. And
it's hard.
Probably looked like a prison guard trying to restrain a prisoner, when it was in fact just a child who just really wanted to keep running around in circles.
Because his body will flail, will go like a plank board and just slide down.
Children are really weird like that. They're not very large, they're not very strong, but for some reason they have a flip out. They figure out how to like lock all their joints into places you can't move them. It's just a very weird thing.
Yeah.
And we haven't talked about like we've talked about Lucas Hedges. He's really good. But
yeah, really good.
The performance that is killer and so valuable to this film is Michelle Williams. And
is this who you thought I was going to say was bad?
No, I thought you were going to say Broderick.
Okay.
Michelle Williams is so good in this movie. She plays his ex-wife. She just has this really good. She's really good in both timelines. In the original timeline, she's really good as just you guys are a bunch of fucking idiots. Will you go to bed? It's 2 a.m. Stop fooling around. That's
the real Massachusetts romance of it all. That they're just like swearing and bickering all the time. But they're still like a kind of love and a smile while they do it. Like it's never the true anger. There's like fucking idiot. You fucking sweat. You need to take a goddamn shower.
There's a lot of really good
love.
And she's really good in that timeline. And then she's really, really good. Maybe the best scene in the movie is the funniest thing is I did not remember this in the original watch. That scene occurs like 15 minutes from the end of the movie.
Yeah. It's the emotional climax in a way. It's him finally having to confront with the pain after he's been hiding from it so long. It's coming face to face with him.
But one thing I love about the scene is that it stays true to the characters. Lee Chandler would never have an emotional talk. He would never have a detailed talk. He would never have a big breakdown. And you can clearly see the emotion on his face and the pain in his eyes. And you know he's crying on the inside. But Lee Chandler doesn't let that stuff. He'd never have the big emotional scene. And the fact that Lonergan can stick so close to who these characters are. I would advise anyone to go look up what the actual dialogue is, because it's sometimes hard to hear in the scene. It's so
I watched
it's so it's brilliantly written. It's a brilliant scene between two really good actors when Michelle Williams is trying to explain that she said all these terrible things about him and she hated him, but she loves him and she doesn't want him to hurt himself, and he keeps telling her there's nothing there, and she wants to have lunch and he can't talk about it, and he's like, that's not a good idea, we shouldn't talk about that. And she's like, no, I know I'm hurting you. He's like, you're not hurting me. I just can't. And I don't know if I've seen a better scene that expresses like pain and trauma and the connection people have even when terrible things happen. Like the idea that they loved each other, something terrible happened, but they still love each other. They just can't be together because the cloud of that trauma is hanging over the relationship, which is why they are not together anymore, and why she's had another kid and moved on to somebody else, but still loves him even because you can't get rid of that bond. You just can't be together because they clearly just remind each other so much of everything they've lost and how they can never get all that stuff back. It's just it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
What stuck out to me the most was the contrast between those characters. You kind of briefly touched on it, but as she is someone who her emotions are seized and she wants that release, she wants to have the moment to let go, to deal with it, because that's the way she can move past it and needs constantly trying to avoid. In a way, this is another addition to him trying to self-punish. Like he can't have that him avoiding that conversation is punishing himself. He's not letting himself be forgiven. He can't deal with that forgiven. He doesn't want that. He doesn't want to have the ability to have some kind of cathartic conversation that goes to the next level. He doesn't believe he deserves that. And he says that too. Like, I don't deserve, forgiveness. I don't deserve anything. It's that continual him trying to make sure he's being punished for his actions. Will never let himself forgive himself or let someone else forgive him. So that's why he just needs to leave. And that control that he has in the performance too of him just kind of mumbling like, I need to go is one of the most relatable things I see in the movie. Like, this is a very important part of trying to deal with anger, deal with conflict. Is sometimes you just feel the need to leave, that you can't be part of the situation, and almost to where he's like shaking within that, trying to restrain, to he just has to walk away. And I found that very powerful as well.
Yeah, and like she really needs to get out her sense of guilt. Like, he has a guilt about what happened, and she has a sense of guilt about how she responded to that and how she treated him in relation to that.
It's almost, she feels like she is killing him. Like he, in a way.
She literally says that during this.
Yeah, I don't want you to die.
Yeah. And she goes, my heart was broken because it's always going to be broken, and I know yours is broken too, but I don't have to carry it. I said things that I should fucking burn in hell for what I said to you. And he keeps telling her, no, I want you to be happy. And it's
the you can't just die scene is where it feels like you see her guilt. Like, you can't just be not part of my life. You can't just fade and die in your grief and never move past this.
Yeah. And he wants you, and his response is she wants to be having, she wants to talk to him because I think she really does care about him. And it's, again, back to the whole Patrick thing. Her response to the hurt and the pain is she wants him to be there in her life, and she wants to have these interactions and these talks and these discussions because she wants to atone for the things that she said to him in the aftermath. But the way he deals with all this trauma, he can't have those conversations because that's not who he is as a person. I think in some ways the brilliance of Manchester by the Sea is that Lonergan allows people to be their genuine selves, even if that's not the quote-unquote emotionally healthy option or the right option or the narratively easy option. Like the fact that Affleck through this entire film goes through all this stuff, experiences all these situations where in a lesser film he would have grown and changed and moved on to a different life, and that Lonergan is allows him to walk away from this movie going, I have a connection with Patrick. I'm not going to be his new dad. He's not living with me. I'm not changing my life because I can't do that. He even says in the final scene with Patrick, I can't beat it. I can't beat it. I can't beat it. I'm sorry. Which is kind of his acknowledgement that his trauma is forever. He can't get rid of that. He can't work past it. This is not, some acts of trauma that we have, that happen to us, you can work past or you can figure out how to deal with. And some you can't. And like the fact that this film shows so many different ways that people can deal with tragedy. Chandler locks himself down. Michelle Williams loves him, wants to talk to him, has a new husband, has a kid, has sort of moved on, but also is still living that. Like she's kind of in both. Patrick doesn't want to deal with it, tries to surround himself with his friends, but then break down the moments where his friends are not there. But like on the whole seems relatively well adjusted compared to the other two. It's one of the most emotionally intelligent films I think ever. Like Lonergan's, and I think that owes a lot of that to Lonergan. He's just his understanding of people.
I think that's
and the way they interact.
His specialty.
Yeah, he just gets people. He gets the nuances of everyday normal people. Like none of these people have done anything amazing, but they've experienced trauma, which is something that so many people experience, and he just kind of lets them experience it, and it makes for a wonderful and beautiful film that is filled with sad moments and you cry, and happy and like funny moments and you laugh at like the dark humor and moments. They argue about fucking Star Trek and the Star Trek is lame, and there's just so many good moments in this film, and I think this is probably why you and me both connect to it, is the emotional intelligence of the characters and the willingness of the filmmaker to just let people feel their emotions without a need to change them or fix them, and just kind of like the acknowledgement that people deal with this stuff differently and that's okay. And showing that the value of showing that is just that people will see something in a film that allows them to understand that emotions are many faceted and can be experienced in just a myriad variety of ways.
Yeah, for sure. I want to talk now as we wrap up.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Who's the best Hank? So I have a couple options here. But
okay, you bring up the options and I will tell you if you're wrong.
Well, okay. So we already brought up
George.
George. Now, not just George though. George and his wife. Great couple.
George's wife is a saint. She's a wonderful lady.
Yeah. And
she lets Casey Affleck
at the dinner is like, those people are cool. They're only so much worried about, the illusion they create in public. They'll shout at each other about food, giving Casey Affleck food in the middle of the meal.
By the way, I have seen that couple at numerous events in Massachusetts, family events. The couple where it's just like they're very happy together. They just happen to be yelling at each other about like, do you want a piece of chicken on the plate at the barbecue?
It's just that like connection that they have that is very real. It seems
like really good in the scene
with marriage.
She's great in the scene where after Affleck gets beat up and he brings him back to the house, like she's like holding him and letting him cry. Like, I mean, she's one of the few characters in the entire film that lets him have any emotional release, and I don't think that can be understated how like important that is. As like she just has a very motherly, loving presence when you're around her that is just I think would be like a nice hang.
Yeah, I think that scene's very important to see them as guardians for Patrick moving forward. But I think they also
and also like, guardians for
I could definitely have a drink with them. I bet you they have a great conversation. I bet you they both can throw down a couple of beers. That'd be nice. Okay, here's my second option. My only other option.
Okay, go.
Pat's friends, good guys. I think so. Like, I mean, they're kind of like doofus bro hockey player guys. Well, one, they're in the band. Two, they have nerdy Star Trek conversations. But they're also just like are out for him. They talk to like the hockey coach, who's like he's going through shit, and they immediately skate up to him and give him a hug. So they have the friendship loyalty too. But I think they're also, if the men grow up, I think they'll be just like Georges. They're little Georges.
They're the kind of great male friendships you want to develop as a teenager, where they're like,
yeah,
they will be loving and kind in the moments where you really need them, but then in the moments where you're just hanging out, they will make fun of you for liking Star Trek and call you a fucking idiot. Like that's kind of like one of those quality friendships you kind of develop in life, where they're like super loyal to you, you're loyal to them, but also they'll call you a fucking idiot if they think you're a fucking idiot.
But they're not above emotions and sentimentality. They're still
they don't reject him
how
when
people
he's
feel
clearly,
it. It's hard for a teenage boy. Yeah.
I would also like to throw out, I feel like Steven Henderson, Lee's boss, is probably a pretty decent hang.
Maybe, yeah. You only see him outside of the authority figure boss aspect, but I think we're just basing it on him in general. The actor. It's a good hang.
Yeah. What about Kyle Chandler? Is Kyle Chandler a good hang?
I think he's a good hang. I worry, just like Lee, about how much they delve a little too much into alcoholism. I think their drinking problem might be a little too far. I don't know if they have control. This is where I worry. Yeah,
that's fair.
I thought about that during the movie. Like, is he a good hang? He seems like a fun guy, but he might have a problem.
I don't know. I think Lee has a problem. I don't know if he had a problem.
I think he's just at the center of the story, but he's like alongside with him during. He's almost like he's a functioning alcoholic. Lee becomes almost a not functioning alcoholic.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like Lucas had to just be a fun hang.
No, maybe. He's an asshole. he's
the same age as him. Yeah, it's fair.
I told you he had too much confidence in his sexuality that I would always felt he was a dick.
I think you mean to say sexual prowess, not sexuality.
It's the same thing.
No, because sexuality is like having faith in your sexuality means that you understand where you lie on the spectrum versus sexual prowess means
sexuality means how you deal as a sexual being, and he knows he is a sexual fiend.
Patrick thinks he is a dick-slinging
player
alpha.
Yeah. That's his sexuality. He's too confident in it.
That's fair. He'd probably be an asshole. All right, so I think I'm going to go with you, and I'm going to say I think that George is the best hang.
George is the best.
I think he's George and his wife. I don't know who I don't know what his wife's name is. I don't know if she's.
I always get along with women better anyway, so me and her would have been cool.
Yeah, she just seems like just a genuinely really nice person. Yeah. Do you want to talk about worst hang? Because I feel like there's some contention here.
No, I mean Casey Affleck is meant to be the worst hang.
Let's be real.
He either wants to get fight with you.
Casey Affleck is not close to the worst hang in this film.
Okay. Gretchen
Moore. I would much rather hang with Casey Affleck than several other characters.
Gretchen Moore and Matthew Broderick are the worst hang.
That's the worst hang.
That dinner would be awkward. They are acting like real humans on purpose.
No, they're robots.
They're robots performing like they are kind humans.
Also, on the opposite side of Patrick's friends, Sylvie and Sandy, his girlfriends, terrible hangs. Like, I don't think we're supposed to. They don't seem that great.
The woman that said, I don't want to see Patrick anymore, she probably stormed the Capitol. That's my pick.
Wait, which is the one that said Patrick?
The one who was trying to get a job at the thing, and she comes to the boss and says, I don't want to see him around here anymore. She's a bad hang.
She's hilarious. In fact, I was watching this movie, and I had that was the exact thought in my head when Lindsay.
She's definitely a narc in some way.
Yeah. She seems like a terrible person. Fun fact, that lady, Erica McDermott, also is one of the Eklund sisters in The Fighter.
Yeah. Whatever assholes were doing cocaine at Casey Affleck's house, bad hang. That's taking it too far. You don't see them. He just talks about them in the investigation. He's like, I got a little carried away. Some guys were doing coke in the middle of this ping pong table in the basement of a house. Where do you think you're living at? Those guys bad hangs.
That is a really crazy. that is a really crazy scene in terms of like his just honesty to be like, yeah, we were drinking and doing like a bunch of drugs in this basement after this massive fire happened. Like he's in this like weird headspace where like he doesn't even understand how bad that sounds from a criminal liability standpoint to just totally throw all that information out there.
I mean,
yeah,
all the guys by the ping pong table that like cheer once Michelle Williams tells them to shut the fuck up and act like she's being an asshole, they're all assholes.
Honestly, Casey Affleck might have been a worse hang before fire than after fire.
Yeah, because he had an alcohol issue. He had a drinking issue.
He was just like an idiot. He was like a drunk idiot all the time. Let's do some final thoughts. Zach, any final thoughts? What's your pitch on people who say that this movie is too sad?
That's people who don't want to deal with real emotions. They're the Midwesterns that want to not come face to face. I think this movie is important to, grow your emotional intelligence, to understand how to deal with pain and how to deal with grief. And it's not hard to watch because these characters are real and they're lovable and they're warm and they feel like family. And that goes a long way in making you able to connect to the film.
Yeah, I would agree. Emotionally intelligent.
And find it strangely really rewatchable. This is the third time I watched it.
It is really, right? It's really enjoyable. And it really flies by, too, for a film that is on some darker source material. Also, sneaky, really fun. There's some really funny scenes in this film that, I'm not going to lie, I laughed out loud in like several scenes in this film because there's just like a ridiculousness and a dark humor to them that I find very enjoyable. I feel like this every time I watch this movie, I'm like, I need to watch more Kenneth Lonergan. And I don't think there's a lot of Kenneth Lonergan that exists in the world, but he's just one of these people I'm like, please do more movies. Which is kind of how I feel about like most of the people in this cast. I guess outside of like Hedges has done a lot recently. But the rest of them I'm just like, yeah, I'd like to see more of you. Yeah, I guess he's only done 3 movies. Yeah, Kenneth Lonergan, please do another movie. You're really great.
He had such a hard time with Margaret, which kind of slowed him down for a little bit.
I know, but you did Lancaster by the Sea. You got like 9
He's also
billion...
one of the most acclaimed playwrights of this generation, and he consistently has plays going on Broadway or off Broadway. So, yeah. He's not fully in his film career. He has a multi-layered career.
Yeah, I would. But yes, please make more movies because you're really talented. And if you do more movies with Casey Affleck, I will be very happy to watch them because I think Affleck really digs your vibe. He's really good at it. Yeah, this is a great movie. I love it. One of the best top 5 movies, top 3 movies of the 2010s. Is that good?
It's really great.
I'm not going to rank it.
To the decade, but I really like it.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, folks. Thank you for listening to us talking about Manchester by the Sea, a wonderful film for such a long time. Next week we'll be back with the ultimate Lucas and Zach movie.
Our birthday present.
The movie that defines our friendship. The movie that the two of us are unabashedly super fans of.
The movie that's probably why we started a podcast, is knowing that someday we can talk about it together. Just trying to fit it into any marathon we can.
This is valid. It's Paddington 2 time, baby. We're rocking up with Paddington 2. Absolutely. Let's get ready for some nice core cinema and make the world right again.
We are also going to review Paddington 3 right after. We're just going to make up what we think happens in Paddington 3. We're going to do a whole fake script read.
We're actually going to do a script read where Zach will read narrator and I will read in different voices wearing different costumes every single other character throughout the film. Yeah. We will see you next week, folks. Have a good evening. Peace out. Zach, you got songs or no?
Manchester by the sea.